Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Fix My Fees podcast. I'm your host, Tavius Washington, and today I brought with you guys somebody that I feel is going to be really important to, what we're talking about as far as like having a business long-term and longevity. This is a 3-time best-selling author, along with being a keynote speaker and a leader in the functional and root cause of medicine. I know we had a great conversation talking about that, but this also stems from 24 years in law enforcement with 10 years on the SWAT team. So this is where a lot of the things we're going to talk about in healthcare is kind of like forged in discipline. And you're going to see that, right? And so what he has done with his institute has helped over 25,000 patients reverse chronic disease, optimize their hormones, slow the biological aging. So I thought with a lot of us on here building businesses, some are moving to the point of being able to sell and moving towards retirement, to have my guy, Mark, come in here and start to share those things with us. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing well, Tavius. Thanks for having me, man. I've been looking forward to this.
I'm glad to have you on too. I saw one of the books and got a chance to start to look into it, being a co-author of Authentic Longevity, right? And then you're also the founder of the Longevity Lab. So a lot of what you're doing really involves helping people maximize quality, not just the amount of years, but the quality of years that you're having. But let's kind of take it back, because I do have questions about that, but I kind of want to go back first because there's a long history into this. So how do we go from law enforcement to medical, and like, what was that spark that happened?
Well, I get asked that quite a bit because it seems like polar opposite of careers, right? It's like this was that and this was this. But in reality, there's a natural story and natural sounding progression once people kind of hear that. The spark, as you noted, what happened. So obviously during law enforcement, you see a lot, do a lot, experience a lot of things. You see the worst situations of, all kinds of people, and nobody ever calls you to take you to dinner. You're always called at a bad time, right? So your job is to always solve the problem. And so certainly the time on the SWAT team, you see some dangerous stuff. You do some dangerous stuff. So it does change your perspective and things quite a bit in life, I suppose. And I started to see a trend and a pattern, Tavius, of my workmates. They got more unhealthy as time went on. And I watched them sort of retire and die. And I was like, something's not right. Well, at the same time, I've started to observe that I was transferred my assignment to the police academy, where I was in part tasked with developing a wellness program that didn't exist. So I had to do my research. And so I began to look at the trends that I saw and what could I do to make a difference in the lives of those police officers. And there was one statistic that I dug up. It was an FBI study, I believe from the 1950s, as I recall. But it sort of had this group that studied police officers that said the average police officer who serves 20 years on a police department lives to the average age of 66. And I thought, wow, that just seems sad. And so I thought, well, okay, that's a good place to start. So I pulled the data, and this is probably back in early 2000s, I suppose, in that window. I pulled the data for Oklahoma, my state, and Tulsa, the county in which my city department was located in. And the data was the same, 66 and 65 respectively. And frankly, my heart is sank because I realized that something that we had picked up on 50 years earlier was still not being addressed. And I thought something is wrong. So I went on a mission to figure out that and determined quickly that police officers obviously live very unhealthy lives, sleep issues, poor diet, sedentary lifestyles, and just usually on 3 or 4 blood pressure or 3 or 4 medications, including blood pressure, blood sugar issues, sleep medications, all that, by the time they've been on 15 or 20 years. So I started studying and learning and studying and learning, started the wellness program, and people started to get better and sort of tried to educate them on how to get out of that mess. And then it was almost like I had this epiphany. My job is to protect and serve. And why does it have to be limited to here? Can it expand beyond this? Can it go across the nation? Can it go across the world? And I saw no reason it couldn't. So I just kept on studying and went back and obtained my traditional naturopathic degree. And then I met my wife shortly thereafter. And, we endeavored to start out the Functional Medical Institute, and did that 15 years ago. And obviously, it was my retirement, started another career. And who does that? But in reality, it's kind of the same thing, protection and service. You want people to do well. And Sometimes the best thing you do is serve them well, tell them the truth, give them a guide, give them a pattern, a plan, a pathway, if you will, but also, love them enough to care about them to tell them the truth. And so,
Yes.
that's what we've done. And I think, you know, had great stories and always looking forward to learn more stuff and help more people.
Got it. I really like that. So how did you decide like the root cause? We know that it's easier to manage symptoms. Why? Because instant pain, instant relief, I'm gonna give you money, right? You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of people go is symptom management, pain management. And if you could reduce that, then you have that. With you, from what I've the research, you really want to push towards the root where you can kind of stop it or reverse it. But why did you decide that was the route you wanted to go?
I saw the system we have profiting off of sickness. Let me just say that one more time. The system we have today profits off of sickness. And I've seen sickness get to an all-time high now. I mean, we are as sick of a nation than we've ever been in the history of the world. And it's becoming so sick, it's becoming normal to be sick.
Yes.
You go back and look at history 50 years ago, it wasn't like that. But after the food pyramid and all kinds of other things happened, people started getting thicker, bigger, all that stuff. And that didn't seem right to me. What's more valuable, avoidance of disease or management of disease? What's better for mankind, to prehabilitate or to rehabilitate? What's
Mm,
better, increasing health span or decreasing sick span, or increasing sick span and decreasing health span? And so I looked at all those metrics and I'm like, something's not right. And then I thought about it from an athletic standpoint and thought, if I could avoid a back surgery or a knee surgery by doing certain things, wouldn't I do that? If I could stay on the field a little bit longer to make more money, wouldn't I do that? And the question seems obvious with the obvious answer. So it just seemed a natural progress to go that direction, and it made sense to me. And as I looked at the system, it didn't make sense what we're doing. It's not effective. So I thought, you know what? It's time to change and do things differently. And certainly I think, even today when we explain it like that to most people, they're like, well, yeah, that makes better sense, of course.
yeah. Yeah. Do you find yourself running into a lot of resistance where you feel like you have to educate? Or how do you start to get to the root cause when you're dealing with someone new who may be like skeptical or not necessarily knowing what's going to happen, through this kind of discovery period?
Well, the conversation today is probably bigger and bolder and louder than it's ever been in my lifetime because of some of our history with the way we've handled things across our nation
Right.
and world. Now, with that said, people come to us, they're most of the time, they're already sick and tired, have tried a bunch of different things, very frustrated, so they're really ready. But occasionally there's someone that comes to us and I have to sort of deal with these quote unquote objections. And I just deal with them straight on. I mean, honestly, I'll use a financial example. If I ask somebody if what they're doing is continuing to create debt, and they agree with that, and then I ask them if they like debt, and they would agree, and I don't like that very much at all. Then if I ask them the flip side of that, what if I could show you how to eliminate debt and create a bunch of equity? They're like, well, yeah, that would be really good. So then I use the term wellness, equity, and wellness debt interchangeably through that scenario. And most people get that and they're able to go, you know what? Yeah, what I invest in right now in my health is going to give me long-term dividends and long-term return on my investment as compared and opposed to creating more debt that I can never pay back.
So wellness debt versus wellness equity, you're saying is what you're doing now versus what you could be doing to build upon it, right? It's like your daily habits could be working against you or for you, even though you may not see the results yet.
Exactly. It's inputs, outputs, right? So, if you do certain things over and over again that are predictable, you know what those outputs will be. For example, we know that exercise is good. We know that eating well is good. We know that sleeping well is good. We know that stress management is good. It's hard to fathom what that looks like long term when you do that. But I think we all would agree, without thinking about it or debating it, that those are good habits. Those are good inputs to have.
Yeah.
Just like it's good input to love people, to forgive people, to walk in peace as opposed to chaos. Those things are good. So you take the obvious and you make it palatable, and you make it modern day stories for people to get. When they understand inputs, outputs, debt, equity, liability, asset, things like that, even from financials, they sort of go, oh, I get this. And so your health is your greatest wealth.
Right.
Ben Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I believe that is true exponentially, including financially.
I like that. I like that. So you said that most people have been through the system and are kind of fed up with it. I know by that time, it's been a long time. Well, how do you start the process of getting to the root? Is it questions? Is there actually something they have to dive into and do themselves? Like, how do you get to the root cause of what's happening?
Well, we certainly have a large questionnaire that have them fill out. And
Okay, that's a
again,
question.
we'll ask them questions, clarifying questions, because one principle that we've been governed by, Tavius, all these years is the idea that the mystery is sometimes uncovered in the history. So
That's
when
true.
you start
That's true.
asking questions, about a person's life, where they've been, how they've been, who they've been, the circumstances they've been through, uh, all those things matter and shape who you are today. I think we all understand the idea of as a child, the child's environment will
Right.
help shape their future. And so that's kind of the first part. We go in and then we will run our necessary, comprehensive blood tests, et cetera, to see where the system is right now from a biological or physiological standpoint. And then we're able to move forward from there. But we must never neglect the past as a reference point, history making point, but we don't want to live in the past either. So we got to think about how can we learn from that stuff and employ strategies, remedies so that it won't happen again, or to get over the processes from the past and move forward.
Yeah. Okay. So a question there. So they do an actual blood test. I've seen things before, but I don't know too much about it. When they're doing that section of it, is it for something specific? Is it more overall kind of like what is that actually doing when they're submitting something like that to you?
You want to look overall. I call it
Right.
the 30,000-foot view, because if you get above, the ground, you look down, you can see valleys, you can see peaks, you can see snow, you can see water, you can see housing developments, you can see towns and cities, you can even see lights, you can see darkness. When you look at a lab, if it's done correctly, it's robust enough, you're able to see all of that landscape or all of that terrain, if you will, of the
Right.
human. And when you start to see the way the terrain's laid out, you're able to go, okay, I need to do a little work over there or there or there, because you're combining that with the past, what you know to be true from their past. And now what you're seeing in their blood work is an expression of what they have been through and are going through right now. And if you can kind of, draw that distinction and draw those together in a conceptual framework, you're able to go, you know what? Yes. And then if you explain that right like that, people are going, well, that makes sense. That's why I'm where I am right now. And what can we do to get out of this situation and make my terrain or landscape look a little bit better?
Got it. Can you walk us through like a situation where you've done that and maybe, kind of like something that maybe was a surprise to the person that they didn't realize, but there was that connection that made sense. Do you have anything where you could kind of like talk about a scenario without, revealing the person about something that maybe have happened like that for them for people to understand what that means?
Yeah. I'll give you an example just of today. Matter of fact, there's a
Nice.
person that ran his blood work several times. It's a he, but he had elevated liver enzymes, and they've been consistently elevated over the course of time. And when you have a liver enzyme elevated, that means the body is struggling with some kind of a toxic something, right? And so I asked him about it. He goes, yeah, no doctor ever mentioned it. Says no big deal, and it's not going up too much, so just don't worry about it. And I'm like, something's going on. So I started asking some history and found out that he had worked in the airline industry, a lot of chemicals around, and I asked him about PPE, personal protective equipment, and they didn't wear any back then, and all the stuff he maybe breathed and was around and all that kind of stuff. And I got to thinking, and he had a lot of brain fog and sort of vertigo issues, dizziness, and he's not a big guy. He's not, having a lot of excess fat. But I thought the brain is full of fat and toxins get stored in fat. So could it be a
Mm-hmm.
toxic burden on the brain? And so all that said, we decided to run a test that looked at mold, aflatoxins, metals, and environmental chemicals. And wouldn't you know it, he was completely loaded up with that stuff, completely over toxic. And he was blown away a little bit, but at least now he had a reason that he felt so bad the way he is. And so now our remedy or action is going to be to get rid of that stuff from his body and assist the body in getting out of his system forever.
Wow. That's
So
crazy that,
fascinating. I
it's
see
so
stuff
important.
like that all the time. If you just start, if you ask the right questions and you learn to listen well, you pretty much can find out where people are in their journey of health and many times find out some really cool answers.
Well, it does feel like doctors in general ask questions, but I don't see them really getting to that kind of level with individuals unless something big pops up and it's an emergency. So why do you feel like it takes someone having to go to you in order for you to lay out the groundwork step by step versus a doctor whose its entire job to make you healthier? They can't really dive or don't really dive into it. Do you understand why that is?
I do. Physicians in the conventional medical systems, they're super smart people. I want to make sure we know that. Some of the smartest people in mankind's existence are in the medical field. They're really brilliant. But their system in which they work, or the system in which they work for, does not allow them the freedom to do what I just talked about. That is not going to happen. They have to do exactly what they're trained to do. Now, insurance model versus free agent model, the two different kind of models. Insurance model, you go in there and you have brain fog. Well, the doctor is going to let you talk about brain fog for about 7 minutes. And you say, well, I've also got a stomach ache. And they're going to say, no, that's next appointment. I can only do one condition right now. That's the rules. And that doctor would give you some kind of medication for the brain fog and you would leave. There would not be a test to discuss, maybe it's toxins.
Right.
The best that might happen is we're going to send you for a study to get some kind of neurological workup, so they send you out of their office to a specialist. Now we're not talking about the gut anymore. We're talking about the brain only, despite the fact that the brain and the gut have an intricate connection that's inseparable. So where I'm going with that is we separate the systems into segregated places, but that's not the way the system works. The system is not segregated. It's interdependent with all of our systems. So you have to think about systems-based approach versus segregation approach. And if you think about it like that, now you understand why people don't get better. Because it's like Tavius goes into to buy a new suit, right? You go into this great suit store, you say, I want to buy a new suit. They say, great. They take you over, they get you some shoes. Shoes look pretty good. They fit you like great. Let's say they're a certain color of shoes. They say, okay, we're done with this department. Now, you said you want a suit. Okay, so we're going to send you over to the trousers department. You go to the trousers department, you get a pair of pants that don't match the shoes. But that's not the trousers department people's fault because that's the shoe department people's fault. But nonetheless, your trouser appointment is done. It's time to go get a shirt. And you get another shirt that doesn't match the trousers or the shoes. They don't talk to each other. It's different departments. So you get the idea. That's exactly what it is in mainstream medicine right now. All the departments are pretty good at what they do, but they don't communicate with each other. Therefore, segregating the system versus unifying the system. And that's where the shortcut is.
Right, right. That makes sense. And yeah, and with the way medical field is getting, what I've seen, at least the overbloating at the top, seems like a lot of doctors and professionals are just managing not getting sued instead of helping the person get better. Cause it's like they feel like they're even trapped by what they can do because of the upper levels in the management in there and what they're telling them they can or cannot do in order to get the person healthy, which is, it's just wild, right? It's a wild, and I'm not going to talk about the whole universal healthcare. We'll dive into that another day, but it's just wild how that system works, that people have to jump out and rely on someone like you to get real results. So, but talk to me about like being, building this up and working with 25,000 different patients. Like, how does that feel to have that kind of impact? And what are some of the things that have led up to being able to help that many people?
When I hear those numbers, it's sort of a wonder and awe, gratitude, that we've been able to impact people's lives at all, but ultimately I think it's one person at a time is how that's done. It's genuinely being present in the presence, it's right paying attention. So right now I'm on with Tavius. I've got to be paying attention to Tavius, not John Doe or not Jane Doe. And that's important. And I think that's part of the journey that we've learned over time when we give people individual care that's really love and kindness and listening and wisdom and advocacy and of course planning for their well-being with follow-ups, they appreciate that. And so it's been really one person at a time. You look back on it and you go, wow, it's been a lot of hard work, but I think well worth it. I think it's well worth it
Yeah.
because what is life? I mean, what do we do? What does that mean? Is our life lived for ourselves or lived for other people? And how will be we remembered? What is our legacy like? And I hope mine is one of, and my wife is one of service. I hope we've done a good job, and I believe, well, I have full confidence that I'm going to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, when I change addresses. I know that. And so the point being, I think, if we all have the capability to change other people's lives, and it doesn't matter if it's 25,000 or one, it's so impacting either way. It is about impacting a life in the person you're involved with right now. I think that's the key to that. I really, really do.
Got it. Got it. And for the parts of the business where this one part of it is like helping people understand and reverse those illness, and the other part of it is like the slow biological aging, do those go hand in hand, or are those separate services that you're kind of helping them working with?
They go hand in hand because when you think about what is the aging process, is it age or is it a slow decay in the signaling ability of the body to repair, build up, tear down appropriately? It's the latter, right? It's that. It's the lack of signaling that creates the aging process. And so it's not the other way around. As we age, we don't get less signaling. It is less signaling creates the aging process. So they both go the same. If you can increase and enhance quality of life by doing the input things I talked about, and we can test that, obviously, the biological aging speeds, then we can actually age at less than our chronological age. In other words, we can do things perhaps that someone, a younger man or younger woman, should be doing, and we could do those at an older age. Now, therefore, we're living younger, older, and hopefully, as time goes on, we'll die as young as old as possible.
I like that. When it comes to the biological aging and slowing that process, what do people misunderstand or get wrong? We do see a lot of, and I you know what? As I'm saying it out loud, I guess I see more so creams than anything else. I'm gonna say we see a lot of like stop the aging, but now when I think about it, it's usually just creams and stuff. I don't know if I've ever know anything else outside of that now that I'm thinking about it. But what do people get wrong or misunderstand when it comes to the aging process or slowing it down?
I think it's probably our expectation is a little bit odd. I mean, we'll use the term life expectancy. What does that mean? That means how long we expect to be living. That means how long we should be expecting to be living. But is that really true? And is that the expectancy that correlates with our body potential? And that's a question I ask people a lot. And I think that the expectancy that we have in life today is far less than the biological potential of expectancy of life we really have. And so I think it's really understanding that, okay, so the calendar says I'm supposed to die when I'm 80. Well, that may be true. It may not be true. Life and death is not up to me. But the quality of my life and what I do with my life in my life is up to me. It's what I do every single day. It's the inputs that I decide to do and how I decide to care for myself enough to give myself an opportunity to live to the place that I'm supposed to live. And it's almost like living through life versus dying through life. Some of the
Ooh.
greatest distractors that I know, there are really four things: death, disease, sickness, and lack. If we are focused on and speaking about those things all the time, that distracts from life. And therefore, we're not living through life, we're dying through life. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather live through life than die through life and make the most of every opportunity. And for however long I'm supposed to be here, I want to make sure that at least I did a good job in all those encounters.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the main things that got me to like, all right, I need to really, really like take working out seriously. Right. And I'm trying to be more health conscious. I'd seen the difference between someone who was 80 and walking around shaking hands. And I've also seen someone who's 50 with a bad workout, bad health, bad diet struggle. And I'm like, that's 30 years of a different life from 50 to 80, where this person is struggling to just walk using walkers and kind of that thing. And it wasn't a broken thing. It was literally just bad habits built up. And then another person at 80 who's doesn't need help waking up, just, shaking hands, moving around, dancing like he's 50 in his 40s. You know what I mean? And that's where you get that living life versus dying through life. Cause you can go from 50 to 80 and still live there, but are you living it or just waking up and going to sleep every day versus like that person at 80, he could travel, he could go do things by himself and he's still doing that. And when you have that kind of vibrancy, you kind of feel like you're going, it's sort of like LeBron in the basketball. Every year you're like, man, can he keep going with this? Nobody else is doing this. Kind of like that.
Well, to do what's never been done,
right?
You have to do what other people won't do. And
exactly.
so, like LeBron actually has an incredible lifestyle pattern that he uses, a lot of those inputs again. And any leader that I know out there in the world that sets a tone or sets the bar high is not afraid to do what everybody else wouldn't do. And they sort of set the tone for, if you want to do this, if this inspires you and you want to do what I've done or see what I've seen, you got to be willing to do this because it took this. And I think it helps people. Somebody's got to lead the way, and I look at that. Why can other NBA players, in LeBron's example, play into their 40s? Why not? I mean, is he going to be the only one? No. There's going to be somebody out there that's going to go, you know what? I want to see if I can play at 44. There's going to be somebody do that. And again, I think it just matters. It's a matter of time. And we are doing things today at much older ages than we had, say, in the last 75 years. And I think some of that's because we're living longer, yes, but some of that's because we're trying harder and doing those things I just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. I do talk to a lot of business owners who are between, the ages of, I would say 50 to 65 that are now at the point of like, hey, I'm selling my business. But what would you say they should be careful of as you're starting to get, into the older ages? Maybe you're not so aware of it. Are there little tangible things that they should be aware of while they're doing it so that they can start the process of making sure they're being well?
100%. I think you find yourself moving less. You find yourself more disconnected. You find yourself traveling less. The world gets smaller. It's said that you grow up and you see the world as a big old place. You want to see it all, and then you see it all, and then once you've seen it all, the world gets smaller again. It gets back to the nation, to your state, to your neighborhood, to your front yard, to your living room and bedroom, kitchen, to your bedroom. So I think you watch for those things. You watch for disconnection with purpose, disconnection with identity. And that's why I always tell people, find something to do with your time as opposed to not. What is retirement? What does that mean? It might be you left this career, but are you done with careers? And I think the answer is no. We always got to find something that drives us, that we can pursue a passion with, because it does help us, achieve that so-called purpose-driven existence every day.
Got it. Can you dive into that just a little more? So you're saying that you've seen purpose, like people who know what they're doing after they've retired and have whatever that is. Doesn't have to necessarily be a money-making purpose, right? It can be whatever purpose is that actually helps with the chronic illness side or the aging side also.
100%. If you find you're needed, man. I mean, if you're needed, wanted, and you feel like you have something to contribute, that's a purpose. So I've watched people even retire from careers, and they may not need the money. They may not work for money anymore, but they might go volunteer at the soup kitchen. They might go volunteer at the jail. They might find something to do every day. Go at the old folks' home and go play bingo with everybody. They find something that gives them some sort of a reason for being. And the more they find that, the more that keeps them alive. When you lose purpose and you lose hope, you lose life. But if you maintain hope, you maintain purpose, you have this idea that maybe life is worth living. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be something that, is still worth another day of effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also I think when you have a purpose and something to do and live for, it also will push you to do the things you don't want to do that you need to do, like working out consistently, keeping the ball moving. You know what I'm saying? Like daily movement is really, really good. And sometimes it feels like it's nice to just sit in bed, sit on the couch, just that one day. But I think when you have that purpose, it's like, all right, let me just do it. Because I know that the long-term effects, if I continue to do this, will help. So I can definitely see how that is. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, I want to kind of touch back on the aging. What do you wish people knew more about when it comes to the aging process? And in fact, I actually want to know either side, whether it's the aging or the chronic illness. What do you wish people knew more about going into working with you?
There is a lot we can do to create either. For example, you can do a lot of things to create longer term health. Things being avoiding processed foods, avoiding breads, grains, corn, sugar, dairy, stuff like that. If we avoid those things, it's going to turn out to be longer term benefit by high likelihood. If we exercise daily, move more, sit less, that's going to give us more likelihood we will have a higher quality of resistance, more mobility later in life. On the flip side, if we don't do those things, well, chances are we won't be moving, and chances are we won't be doing really well, physically speaking. So I think people need to know you have a lot of control of this. The idea that, well, you got bad genes, that's ridiculous. We've all got different genes, but is it bad? No, because understanding genetics, which we try to do, is one that I think is super empowering as opposed to disempowering. I don't look at genes as saying, well, this is where I'm going to get sick. I look at them as giving me information so that I won't. So it's all about looking at the information we have and making the decision that is one bent towards hope, bent towards life, or one bent towards the other side of the coin. But we do have a lot of control, Tavius, on how we turn out.
Now I'm gonna put myself in a pretend situation of like being an owner, and they're gonna say, but Mark, I'm working 12 hours a day. I don't, and I feel overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin. And there's this new fad of this and new trend of that. I don't know which diet works, which workout, and it all just feels overwhelming. So, and I never get started. What would you say to somebody who feels that because they're in a situation where they are over inundated with so many different things and a new marketing thing of every moment, while at the same time they have a busy lifestyle that technically works right now, right? Because they've built that kind of lifestyle.
Well, I would say that they're right. I agree. Life is busy today. It's chaotic. There's a bunch of information going forth that really can be conflicting. You don't know what to do. A lot of people try different things. It doesn't work. It's they develop a pattern of failure, just expectancy to fail. And so they just throw up their hands and say, what the heck? At the same time, as I stated earlier, less than optimal health has been normalized. So we follow this category of, well, I'm a little better than Tavius, that kind of thing. I don't have as big a belly as he's got. I know it's not perfect, but you get my point. And so I think that journey like that, I think people find themselves truly knowing they need leadership out there, truly knowing they want to plan, but not finding it. So they find that they normalize the working all the time because it's just a Band-Aid to take over the pain they have because they don't feel good. And I think when we come in to get people off of that place, we say, all right, I get it. You're busy. Well, let's just take this one day at a time, one habit at a time, one meal at a time, one decision at a time. I'm not worried about tomorrow. Yeah. I'm concerned about what you're going to do with the very next decision you have. Can we just get that right? You see, I'm just take it one thing at a time. And the more times we do stuff right, the more times we feel better. People, they like that because they want to feel better. Feeling better yields feeling better. Yeah. Feeling worse yields feeling worse. And so I think both of those angles do really count.
Yeah, I definitely, I can't think of that term, but it's like getting 1% better every day. That's what it is. Yeah. So like for me, it was like, instead of going on this huge diet where I cut off everything, it was like fried foods. Just get the baked version, get the not fried, and then just do that. When that becomes normalized, you can add something else, right? Like I just now finally cut out pork. Finally cut out pork. I've been hearing it enough. I've cut it out. But it started with, before cutting it all the way off, it was just like, I'll have bacon and nothing else. So I cut it down to bacon, and then now it's bacon, which just primarily was on my breakfast food. Find a suitable replacement, and now I don't miss it, right? You know what I mean? But it was a slow progress to getting there versus if somebody was like, just do keto. I've tried everything from back in the day when we had Billy Blake's, right? And Tybo. And it just didn't stick because it was so much at one time and I felt like I couldn't keep up with it. You know what I mean? So, but when it comes to working with you, just in case somebody is thinking about reaching out to you, they're feeling the chronic illness, or they're starting to feel something and they don't know what it is. Can you walk us through like what that journey, the big picture of what that journey from start to finish would kind of look like working with you?
Well, if they end up having a consult with myself and my wife, I mean, the first thing we do is we review their history, and then we have a conversation with them. It's usually a Zoom or in person or whatever the case may be, wherever they are. And we'll spend about an hour with them. I want to know their story. I want to know their history. I want to know where they've been, where you are in your health right now. And finally, where do you want to go? And I want them to vision and dream, get that dream out there. I want to see it. I want to hear it, feel it, touch it. I want it to be alive. And then we find the dream, whatever that is, and then we work backwards. How do I get there? And we work backwards from the dream and get our pathways set to achieve that. And, it does work pretty good, but when they work with us, they're going to speak with us and become part of our community, I suppose. And instead of being just a clinician, client, doctor, patient relationship, it's different. It's actually, we are part of your team. We're part of your health advisors, and people do get better like that because they appreciate that approach.
Yeah, I like that. Like actually having a health advisor. So
Yeah.
when you see you have a doctor, it does feel like you should only be hitting them up when things are going bad, right? With a health advisor, it feels like it's more if I have questions, if there's nuance, if I make a decision between certain things, I always have somebody that I can go to. And is it just based on like what they're needing to change, how often they can have that or how often they need to have those interactions with you?
It is. It's really based upon what they need. We try to make this truly personal and personalized. And so it's like, under the word advisor, there are financials advisors. You know that. Financial advisors, they're there for you. And when they come back with a favorable report, you would have every right to come back and say, hey, this is good. I'm glad. I like the interest rates here in this quarter. Can we make it better? And the financial advisor might say, well, yeah, I think we can. Or on the flip side, the financial advisor might say, we had a rough one. We need to do some reallocation here, realignment in some areas and get it fixed. So that's just what we do. I mean, we just kind of provide guidance alongside the person. And it truly is, is a endeavor of love for the person and care. But I think people can sense that. And when they sense that in that environment, better things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And then having that community of people, some people, they don't have it, right? And if you can have a community to provide with them, just being able to reach out is sometimes and be able to communicate can lift a person's spirits. And we know the difference between like, what do they say when people come home from a hospital to a dog versus not one, just the energy and happiness of the dog can help the recovery time. So, having a community, and things like that can be really helpful. But is I guess, who you work with, is it limited to certain, illnesses, certain feelings, certain symptoms, or is it somebody who maybe as they're getting older? Like I had one gentleman who was like, man, the more I realized I've always had sleep problems, it didn't affect me until I hit my 40s. Right. And now I'm working 10-hour days and I can't sleep. So I'm on energy drinks, and now I'm drinking 12 energy drinks a day in order to do the same thing that in my 20s that I just did naturally. Like, can someone like that also reach out to you? Is there a limit to who can?
No, it's both. It's people that just really want to turn their health around, I suppose. Whoever that would be. And our main demographic, I would say, is probably 35 to 65, probably 70% female. But, it's just, if you want to have that kind of a care and have the opportunity to be part of a world-changing community and the way people think, then we're probably a person to consider.
Yeah, and then men, stop being egotistical and let's get checked out. Right? We know that the women do it, but man, we got to step our game up if it's that big of a difference, right? We got to care more so we can be around for our family and friends.
Right.
As we're starting to wrap up, if people wanted to reach out to you, if they want to have that conversation with you and your wife, and they want to just start the conversation just to see if you can help them and how, what would be the best way that they can reach out to you and your team?
Well, they can go to our community website. It's functionaldr.com. Super easy. Functionaldr.com. And there's plenty of free stuff there. There's ways they can schedule consults. There's all kinds of connectors to our blogs and stuff like that. Or they want to go to a personal website, you just see more about who are those people. Now that's fair. It'll be drmarksherwood.com and then Dr. Michele with one L Sherwood.com. And again, we welcome that. People know who we are. I don't have anything special. I just work a little bit harder than most. So I think that's, if people want to work with us and reach out to us, we certainly welcome that.
And leave us with one last testimonial. If you have like a favorite one, the one that kind of makes you feel like, man, this is why I do it, right? I always like that one. It doesn't have to be the biggest reverse, the biggest change. It's that one that when you sit back, you go, this is why I do this, because of that change. Can you give us a testimonial or something like that?
Yeah, I'll give you one that's, just probably impacted me more than anything I've ever seen. Is so off the wall and just wow moment. So I get this email from a client who had for a few years. And the person says, I'm sending you a package. And her next visit was actually in my office in a month or so. And she goes, I don't want you to open it until I get to the office. You're going to open it in front of me. Okay. Well, your mind's like, what is this? Explosive? What's going on? Kind of deal. Then
Right.
Like, what the heck? So the package arrives and, of course, I'm thinking all I can do is just can't open it. I tell the staff, don't open that. I made no word. I promised I wouldn't. So the lady shows up in my office, in my room office, and asks the question, did you get my package? I'm like, yes, I did. She goes, well, go get it because we're going to open it. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And so I went and got the package, brought it back in and started opening it. And this is true. This blew my mind. Straight up story, Tavius. I opened it up and it was about 4 pill bottles of some assorted narcotics. And I thought, what is this? So I pulled them out, put them on the desk, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I said, what is this? And the lady tells me, and she was straight up about it. She goes, that was the pills I was going to use to kill myself until I met you guys. Does that not make you go, wow?
Yeah.
And she said, I melt them down here because I want to watch you throw them away in front of me. And I thought, wow. So I scooped them up, went to the back, and I got one of our medical assistants back there to, watch. And she goes, what are you doing? And I told the story, and she just started bawling because, it's like, that's pretty impacting.
That is.
So we destroyed the pills and, got rid of those things the way we're supposed to. And, but that's probably one of the ones that made me go, you know what? You never know who you're dealing with,
Yes.
what you're dealing with, or what they're dealing with. And, you just never know the weight of your words, the weight of your ears, the weight of your heart being present in those moments.
Yeah. I love that, because all of them matter, right? Every person you can help, from small to big, all of them matter. They all are why we do it. But there are some stories that just, man, give you a little thing in your eye real quick that you do. And I love people hearing those.
It's true, man. And that stuck with me all those years because it's just like, man, who gets to experience that?
Right. And that reinvigorates you too. I need to go help more people so I can get more stories, right? And that's the kind of the engine that keeps it pumping when you're working that late night and you're like, man, this is tiring. And you can just remember that person and you're like, man, who's the next person that can have that? It works, right? It helps out, right? And so that's awesome, man. But, as we're, we are talking about that in the late nights and the extra hours we put in when we love something, we do also have to balance the other side. And you being able to have a business with your wife and then also having to manage life outside of it. How do you manage that work-life balance? And what are some of the things you love doing outside of work that kind of light you up?
Well, my wife and I have a date night every week. So I make that happen. And that's one of those non-negotiables. And I think with a situation like we've got, or really any married situation, you've got to have that as a non-negotiable, whether you do it once a week or whatever, because your wife needs that or your husband needs that. Secondarily, for us, we like to schedule usually trips. So we'll do a kind of a bigger one in the winter and a bigger one in the summer. And then we might schedule like weekend trips 2 or 3 or 4 times. So I always try to have 2 ahead, not 1 ahead, 2 ahead. So when you finish one, you've already got 2 more that are coming ahead. So I try to do that all the time. And you always got something to look forward to. So yeah, date nights and those time together like that. And we work hard. We do. And again, when you work with your spouse, you don't really get away from your work, but we do separate it out where we have time for just us, where we try not to talk about work, although that's not for us, not a stressful thing for the most part, but we try to get time for us and just time to see and visit, just be.
Nice. I like that. I love that, especially the non-negotiables and having that there. It's very easy to get
100%.
into work mode and stay in that. And you can come up with a million excuses, man. I have to sacrifice. I have to.
Sure
It's
can.
because of the future, but making sure that you can still find time and make time to be present, I think is really, really awesome. And then
Indeed.
are you a type of person that when you're traveling, do you like to try a bunch of new foods? Are you more of I stay in my zone? What do you like to do when you're traveling?
Well, I'm going to eat healthy. I like to try new foods, but I'm going to eat healthy, natural foods. And so I may try local cuisine, but it's going to be natural foods. I mean, one thing I won't do, and you won't see me doing this, is eating the standard American Western diet foods. I won't do it because, I mean, not that people can. I get it's a free country, and not that I would condemn anybody for doing that, but I won't and can't because I tell people not to. I talk about the danger of it. So if I ever did that, somebody took a snapshot of that, it'd ruin what we do. So I'm not gonna do that. And
Got him.
it's dangerous. I need to live out what I believe is true. If I'm hypocritical, why would anybody listen to me? Why would they listen to my wife? So I like to say we are who we say we are outside of our professional image, and it's the same. And I'm not gonna put on a front for anybody. I don't think that's right. I think that's kind of conning people, manipulating people. So just we're gonna be ourselves, and that's who we are, really in an authentic way.
Awesome. That's a good place to stop. And I love that because it really shows like not only who you are as a person, but like you do care about making sure that people trust you through and through, not just a do as I say, not as I do type of person, but like, no, I do this because I believe in it in that same way. And that's how people can trust you, listen to you and follow that advice because you're, walking or, practicing what you preach, so to speak. So one more time, what was the website that you said? Functionaldr.com. What was the website they can go to?
Yeah, functionaldr.com is our business address. Personal website is drmarksherwood.com and Dr. Michele with one L Sherwood.com.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Mark, for coming on here with an audience that is building businesses. A lot of us can neglect our health. We can make excuses. We can bypass. I just see so many people bypassing chronic illness because of I need to get this done. Then when I get the money, I can then go, type of thing. And I want them to know like there's better ways to approach this. So thank you so much for coming on my podcast and actually having the conversation and letting people know that there's a better route out there than traditional medicine and just hoping and praying.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for having me. That was fun. I really, 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 truly appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm going to put all of his links right here in the YouTube bio. So if you're in that process of even thinking about it, there's a reason why I asked the question if there was limited to who you can reach out, because I've seen people of various backgrounds with various problems. And I do not want you guys to feel like my problem isn't big enough for Mark, right? It's not big enough for Mark. I'll wait until it's become chronic. No, that's the purpose of me asking that, is so that y'all know that even if you're just feeling something, if you want to be better, Mark will let you know if you're not ready or if you're doing things right or if you don't need so many changes. They'll also let you know if we need to start to dive deeper. And starting with that questionnaire, I think would be really, really amazing. So please reach out if you do it. And thank you again, Mark. And thank you all for listening. Reach out to Mark if you really need to. And if you have a business that's changing lives and impacted people like Mark is, and you want a platform where you can speak about it, reach out to me. And if I'm curious, I'll bring you on here too. Tavius at fixmyfeesteam.com is my email, and I'll put that into the bio too. Thank you all for another episode, and good night.